Good morning, children. Welcome back to your English class. As I told you, you have two textbooks for English, New Images and Cornerstone. Today, I will teach you the first chapter from Cornerstone. Chapter 1, The Sentence. Let's start. What is a sentence? Sentence is a group of words. Sentences have three important characteristics. 1. Express complete thought and idea. For example, blue sky is the. Is it conveying any meaning? No. So it's not a sentence. Now, rearranging the same words, we get a meaningful sentence. The sky is blue. We get to know the color of the sky is blue from the sentence. As it's conveying the meaning, we can call it as a sentence. 2. Subject and a verb combination. A subject must have a verb. In some sentences, subject is not being given. For example, put the book there. The subject is not given, but it's understood. You is implied here. 3. The most important characteristic of sentence is meaning of any sentence may differ according to the factors that are statement, question, command, and exclamation. So let's rewind. You have learned that a sentence is a group of words that makes complete sense. A sentence always has at least one find verb. A sentence starts with a capital letter and ends with a full stop, a question mark, or an exclamation mark. A find verb is a verb that shows the person and number of the subject. For example, birds fly south for the winter. Ravi's parrot flies in and out of its cage. Now moving to the next, subject and predicate. A sentence has two parts, subject and predicate. Examples: my mother loves tea. In that sentence, subject is my mother and predicate is loves tea. Let's see few more examples. The people in the room were enjoying the music. The people in the room is the subject and were enjoying the music is the predicate. The baby is sleeping. The baby is subject, is sleeping predicate. All the children are ready for the trip. All the children subject are ready for the trip predicate. So, what do you mean by subject? A subject is that part of a sentence that names the person or thing about whom something is said. Then, what do you mean by predicate? A predicate is a word or a group of words that tells us something about the subject. The subject is usually placed before the predicate, but sometimes the order is changed. The subject remains the same in spite of change in its position. Let's see two sentences as example. A. The letter came after a few days. The letter is the subject, came after a few days is the predicate. Let's see the another sentence. After a few days came the letter. After a few days came is the predicate. The letter is the subject. And the other feature of subject and predicate is in imperative sentence, the subject is always you. It is not mentioned but implied. For example, go there. It means you go there. B. Have the medicine regularly. It means you have the medicine regularly. Here the subject is you. Again, in questions and exclamatory sentences, we find out what or who the sentence is about and identify the subject. For example, have you been to the market? Here the subject is you. Every predicate has at least one verb. The verb changes according to the number of subjects. For example, the dog is barking. It's singular verb. The dogs are barking, plural verb. The predicate may contain an object, a complement, or an adverb. As I told you, a sentence consists of two parts, the subject and the predicate. In a sentence, the subject may be the person or thing that does the action or the one on whom the action is performed. For example, the swimmer dived into the pool. The spacecraft was launched. In the first sentence, the subject is the swimmer who does the action, and in the second sentence, the action is performed on the subject, that is the spacecraft. The rest of the sentence, excluding the subject, is known as the predicate. So the subject means the subject of the sentence is the part which denotes the person or the thing we are talking about. Then, for identifying the subject of the sentence, we usually ask the question who or what before the verb. In the given examples, we can identify the subject by asking who dived into the pool. So, who dived into the pool? The swimmer dived into the pool. What was launched? The spacecraft was launched. So, we are getting the answer for our WH questions. Remember that. And what do you mean by predicate? The predicate is that part of the sentence which tells us about the subject. The predicate will always include the verb. The subject usually comes at the beginning of a sentence and is followed by the predicate. However, there are exemptions. In lines of poetry, the subject might come after the predicate. For example, out of the sea came he. So, he is the subject. In questions, the subject comes after the helping verb. Can I be of any help? In imperative sentences, the subject is often implied or understood. For example, go home as soon as you finish this work. The you is the subject. It's implied. It's understood. The subject of a sentence may be one or several words. The word that is most important in such a phrase is then called the subject word. Look at these sentences where the subjects have been highlighted and the subject word underlined in each case. Subjects have been highlighted and subject word is underlined. The weather was hot. The hot weather caused the death of many birds. The weather being sultry spoiled our picnic plans. In the second and third sentences above read, the subject words have been qualified by an adjective hot and a group of words that acts as an adjective being sultry respectively. The is also considered to be an attribute. So, what do you mean by attribute? The adjective or the adjective phrase that qualifies the subject word in a sentence is called the attribute. Let's move to the next. Like the subject, the predicate of a sentence is usually made up of more than one word. Sometimes the verb in a sentence may be qualified by an adverb or a group of words that works as an adverb. For example, Ravi runs fast. We ran all the way. In this sentence, runs and ran are the verbs, and the words fast, all the way are the words which qualifies the verb. An adverb or an adverb phrase that qualifies the verb is called the adverbial qualification. The person or thing that receives the action of the verb is called the object of the verb. Example: Sarida is reading a book. I love peanut butter sandwiches. Tara met her childhood friends after ages. In this sentence, the verb has only one object, the direct object, which we identify by asking the question who or what after the verb. Now let's read few more sentences. Manisha is making tea for her guest. Akshay gave a beautiful pennant to his mother. The children received a letter from their father. In this sentence, the verbs take two objects, direct and indirect. The indirect object is identified by asking the questions whom after the verb. The direct object is identified by asking the question what after the verb. Now let's learn about transitive and intransitive. When a verb requires an object to receive its action, we say the verb is transitively. A verb whose meaning is complete without an object is said to be used intransitively. For example, the little dog is chasing a rat. It's a transitive sentence. The rat is running away as fast as possible. It's an example for intransitive sentence. Intransitive verbs do not have objects, but sometimes they require a word or a group of words to complete their sense. Example: Meera is a doctor. Romit seems to be a studious boy. they tell us something more about the subject of the verbs. A word or a group of words that is required to complete the sense of a verb and that tells us something about the subject of the verb is called the subjective complement. Let's look into next. I appointed him captain. They proved me wrong. Here, the words captain and wrong tell us something about the object of the verbs, namely him and me. A word or a group of words that is required to complete the sense of the predicate and that tells us more about the object of the verb is called the objective complement. Now, we shall move to kinds of sentences. You have learned that a sentence can be a statement, a question, a request, a command, a denial, or a response. There are four kinds of sentence: declarative sentence, interrogative sentence, imperative sentence, and exclamatory sentence. Now we can see what is declarative sentence. Declarative sentences tell information about anything that ends with a period. Example, a dog is man's best friend. Here it says that a dog is always man's best friend. The sandwich is very tasty. Here we conveyed the information of the taste of sandwich. She is a beautiful girl. We are defining the beauty of a girl. All of them end with a period. Declarative sentences just state facts. Declarative sentence, otherwise known as assertive sentence. An assertive sentence begins with a capital letter and ends with a full stop. Assertive sentences are of two kinds: affirmative and negative sentence, otherwise positive sentence and negative sentence. The knife is blunt. The knife is not sharp. The two sentences convey the same meaning, but one does so negatively, while the other states it positively. A sentence that tells us that something exists or something is happening is called an affirmative sentence. An affirmative sentence is also known as a positive sentence. A sentence that states that something does not exist or that something is not happening is called a negative sentence. Negative sentences usually contain not or no. Let's look into next. Interrogative sentences. Interrogative sentences used to ask a question and end with the question mark. Where, what, when, how, who. For example, who are you? Where is my book? How are you? Will you be my friend? Where is my umbrella? Has the gardener sown the seeds? Can you swim? Does your brother play tennis? There are two kinds of interrogative sentences: yes or no questions and WH questions. When we ask these questions, we expect the answers to be yes or no, so they are called yes or no questions. Where did you go yesterday? Who is your favorite writer? Questions that begin with the why, what, when, which, who, where, whom and how are called WH questions. Like yes or no questions in WH questions 2, the helping verb comes before the subject and the main verb comes after the subject. Sometimes what, who or which may act as the subject of the sentence. For example, who committed this mistake? Who left the lights on? Now moving to the next kind of sentence, imperative sentences. Imperative sentences gives command or ask for request. Imperative sentences ends with a full stop or exclamation mark depending on how forcefully the sentence being said. For example, put the key in the drawer. Wait for me. Please leave your footwear outside. And remember one thing, not all imperative sentences are necessarily commands. They can be social expressions. For example, get well soon, have a nice day, etc. So, what is an imperative sentence? A sentence that gives a command or an order, makes a request or gives advice is called an imperative sentence. Now the last kind of sentence, exclamatory sentences. They are used to express strong emotions or feelings. It ends with an exclamation mark. When you are angry, when you are happy, when you are surprised, we use exclamation mark. For example, that is a huge fish. Here expresses the emotion of surprise after seeing a huge fish. What a beautiful day. Here we expressing our happiness after experienced a nice day. He is such a nice boy. Here we expressed satisfaction. So, an exclamatory sentence always ends with an exclamation mark. And what do you mean by exclamatory sentence? It's a kind of sentence that expresses strong feeling. So now let's revise kinds of sentences. An assertive sentence makes a statement. It ends with a full stop. An assertive sentence can be positive or negative. An imperative sentence ends with a full stop. Sentence that express a command, request, advice, order or suggestion are called imperative sentences. An imperative sentence ends with a full stop. It tells us to do something through request, command, order, advice or suggestion. An exclamatory sentence ends with an exclamation mark. It usually begins with a what or how. It expresses feelings. Let's move to the last part of this chapter, transformation of sentences. You have learned that it is possible to change the form of a sentence without entirely changing the meaning. Look at this pair of sentences that convey the same meaning. How sweet the song is. It's example for one exclamatory sentence. The song is very sweet. It's an example of assertive sentence. Aren't elephants very intelligent? It's interrogative sentence. Elephants are very intelligent. Assertive sentence. He did the work. It's example for affirmative sentence or otherwise known as declarative sentence. He did not fail to do the work. Example of a negative sentence. So here you can see the transformation of sentences. We can change the sentence without changing the meaning. So in this chapter we learned about different kinds of sentence, parts of sentence. So I hope this video helped you understand what a sentence is and how to identify each kind of sentence. The challenges we have faced since the emergence of novel coronavirus are significant and continuing. So, stay safe, stay home. Thank you for watching.